Hello, and welcome to our group presentation on doing business with a foreign country. Today we'll be talking about Israel. Israel is a Middle Eastern country that was established on May 14th, 1948. And this is the flag of Israel. It's blue and white with a Star of David in the middle. The Israeli society is considered to be polychron, which means that it is relationship-oriented, whereas in the West, countries like America, Britain, and Germany were more considered to be monochron, which means we're more rule-oriented. So when doing business in Israel, please note that the relationship with the partners that you have is more important to them than the rules. When scheduling meetings in Israel, please know that meetings in Israel are often spontaneous, so they're not really scheduled most of the time, and punctuality can be unpredictable. So always allow 15 to 20 minutes after the start of the meeting before thinking that the other party is late. And when in Israel, during a meeting, telephone calls can be taken and other people are allowed to enter or leave the meeting room. And interruptions of this type are common in Israeli culture, and they're not considered to be rude, arrogant, or impolite. And like in America, after most meetings, people do want to go out for dinner. It's the same thing in Israel. However, you have to be considerate of your business partner. So in Israel, you have to ask what religion your business partner is. There are three main religions in Israel. That's the Muslims, Jews, and Christians. If they're Jewish, etiquette for Jewish dinner is the head of the house sits at the head of the table, and honored guests sit next to him. And in most Orthodox Jewish homes, women and men often dine in different areas and at different times. The left hand is considered to be unclean and in the Arab world, so when eating, if eating with your hands, the right hand is what you want to use. And never invite your host to socialize on the Sabbath or during any Jewish holiday or festival without inquiring beforehand if they will be able to make it. And kosher food is what is often served in the Jewish society.
In Israel, conversations often involve gestures and touching. Do not feel offended if an Israeli does not offer you his hand, but physical contact is very important. You should always keep direct eye contact, and if an Israeli comes too close, like by invading your personal space, it is normal to accept it because delaying the communication might not be well received. The female business traveler should avoid initiating physical contact. And the standard greeting in Israel is shalom, or a cordial hello. And it's followed by a handshake, usually. However, observant Orthodox Jewish men, they do not shake the hands of women. If an Israeli holds your hand, take it graciously as a gesture of friendship. Constant gesturing is acceptable, but pointing is considered rude, and you should refrain from any gestures that require you to extend the thumb because it is considered offensive. I have a picture here of a general handshake. When you shake hands in Israel, your thumb should be pointing downward. You can see that. The thumb should always be pointing downward. Business cards are considered important and should be printed in English, but some visitors have to use the reverse side and perhaps print it in Hebrew. Business is usually straightforward and emphasizes the bottom line. The pace of business is slower in Israel than in many places, and you have to learn to be patient and tolerant. Many Israelis tend to be confrontational at times, intensely emotional negotiators. They may enjoy arguments and tend to be opinionated. However, you don't have to feel compelled to openly argue with what they say or agree with it. There is tendency among Israelis to downplay their professional titles, so it's likely that you will be quickly invited to move to a first-name basis in business.
Good afternoon. My name is Carnita, and I'm going to discuss some taboos in Israel. It's hard to discuss taboos without first mentioning the different religious groups there. There's the Islamic religion and the Jewish religion. I have a few pictures of a couple of the religious monuments. This is a picture from the Jewish monument, the old biblical city. And this is a picture of the Islamic monument Dome on a Rock. The Sabbath is a sacred day in Israel, so on that day you should not work, drive a car, switch electricity on and off, or cook food. Generally, Israeli people do not eat pork for obvious religious reasons. CBS News published an article in June of last year about a soldier who was arrested and given prison time for consuming pork because they said it broke military laws. When visiting religious monuments, you should make sure that you dress modestly, that is, men and women. Make sure the top of your head is covered. And also, women should make sure that they do not wear pants or trousers. They must select a skirt that is below the knee and cover as much skin as possible to avoid unwanted attention. Also, women should also travel with a companion at all times in Israel, because women who travel alone are seen to be causing trouble or to be making trouble. So they should make sure that they have someone with them at all times. Israeli people do not believe in interracial dating or marrying outside of your religion. The Arabic and the Jews do not mix. So they actually have patrol groups in Jerusalem to make sure that's not happening. So if you would like to, if you're Arabic or Jewish and you want to marry, you have to go outside of the city to do that. Topics that you should avoid in Israel include U.S. aid in Israel, religion, Palestine, Lebanon, sex, and rules of the sexes, and any other controversial topic of Israel. Probably the top of that list should be the Holocaust. Thank you.
So next we'll look at conflict resolution in Israeli society. Firstly, we have to understand that the Jews are encouraged to be peaceful. The Torah teaches them to be a peaceful people, and if an enemy is hungry or thirsty, they're obliged to provide for them. And the Baritha encourages Jews to be polite to non-Jews, to greet them, and to ask them of their well-being to avoid conflict. However, with all this, sometimes conflict cannot be avoided. And if conflict cannot be avoided, Jews have different ways of resolving conflict. The first one is violence, the second is separation, the third is compromise, and the fourth is reconciliation, but not necessarily in that order. In violence, when you think back to the Bible and you think about the story of the brothers Cain and Abel, when they had conflict, it ended up with brothers arguing, and Cain ended up killing Abel. In the second one, which is separation, when you think back to the Bible, the Jews look at the story of Abraham and Lot. When the two had conflict, Abraham tried to resolve this conflict, say to Lot, okay, there are two paths. You choose yours, I choose mine. And when they did that, Abraham chose a path going in the opposite direction of Lot so as to avoid conflict. The other one is compromise. When they're being told to be compromised, they're asked to act in an honest way in God's eyes. And when you think back to the Bible, you think of the story of Solomon when two women came before him, with two women with one dead child and one alive child. When Solomon was about to cut one of the children in half, the one woman compromised and said, "You can give the child to the woman to the other woman." And in so doing, she ended up getting the child, and that child was able to be kept alive. That was because of compromise. And the last one is reconciliation. There's several stories in the Bible where one has to ask for forgiveness and try to reconcile with one's enemies. And the Jews are encouraged to do that and to resolve any conflict with their family. So in conclusion, we'll say when doing business in Israel, if you don't know if something is appropriate, just try to avoid doing it. And if you do not know, just ask. So thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation.